Chapter 6. Horseback. Riding along on the back of the large palomino named Big Boy, Sierra felt as if the last 3 months hadn't happened. The silence of the world around her, void of car motors, airplanes, or any other noises created by modern life, made it easy. For the first time since her uncle's farm, she even thought about the documentaries she used to love making so much. She often imagined what prom and graduation would have been like. It was at those times that the reality of what her life had become smothered those happy thoughts with images of her family's murder or Sawyer's death, images that seemed to never leave. Sierra had tried hard not to become close to other people out of fear that they, too, would be taken. No matter how much she attempted to keep others at a distance, she found herself caring for them. Out of those riding with her, 2 had broken through her emotional defenses. It was hard for her to not care for Carlos. They were feelings born from battle on the first day. Feelings for Kate, on the other hand, stemmed from the mutual sorrow they both felt from losing those close to them. Accompanied by 2 others, the 3 of them rode on horses taken from stables near the armory. Darian and Mac had been with Kate since the St. Louis massacre. In fact, they had refused to stay behind. Neither of them wanted to break the bond they had created with Kate by letting her go without them. Things had truly changed from what any of them thought they would be facing. They had no idea what had happened, and with no communications equipment, they were forced to send out scouting parties. After a few days of riding west, they could tell that civilization was deteriorating fast. Vehicles were scattered all over, sitting in the same spot where they had died. Every so often they would see an older model making its way down the road, only to be taken by others who wanted it more. People had begun panicking, taking an every-man-for-himself stance when it came to food, water, or transportation. More than a few times, Sierra and the others in her party rode with their weapons at the ready, not knowing if one of the many people wandering around was going to attempt to take what little they had. Smoke from burning cars and buildings filled the air. They would continue to burn until they ran out of fuel, for there was nobody coming to put them out. The scene was the same everywhere they went. The only difference was the number of bodies rotting on the ground. It had become a country they never dreamed of before. Sierra stood out from the others in her group, dressed in jeans and a white tank top that was covered with a plaid flannel shirt. Her old feed store cap rested on her head with her hair pulled through the back. The others wore military uniforms that had been dyed black with the UCM patch on the sleeve. Sierra also wore the patch, but chose to sew it onto her flannel, refusing to put on a uniform. "Has anyone noticed that there aren't as many people out as there should be?" Kate asked as she looked around. She had been observing the people they came across. After seeing the population sign for Jefferson City, things just didn't add up in her mind. There should have been many more people out roaming for food. Even if half the people stayed in their homes, there should be 3 times the number of people out looking for food and water. Kate just couldn't let the idea go as they rode along. "Do you think there is something going on?" Sierra asked, not really interested, just thankful that there were not even more people to worry about. She didn't like shooting people, but had come to the conclusion that some just needed a bullet. Just 6 months ago, her feelings had been quite different. Not sure. They could just be out in other areas more than here. "If you think there is something going on, then let's start asking." Sierra didn't care. She just wanted to be supportive of Kate. Anything to keep her mind off Sawyer's death. The more they rode along and Sierra began looking around, the more she thought about what Kate had said, and found herself agreeing that the lack of people was troublesome. "Kate, over there." Darian pointed at a guy walking along with what appeared to be his family on the other side of the highway. They were staying close to the trees as if at any minute they would need to run and hide in them. Now looking at the same thing as Darian, Kate also agreed it was quite curious, but many things that would have been strange a short time ago were quickly becoming a normal sight. "Sierra, let's ride over. Maybe we can get some information about what's ahead," Kate suggested. Without a response, Sierra guided Big Boy in the family's direction, and the others followed. She, too, thought it would be useful to get information from them, not for the same reason Kate wanted, but because it would be nice to know a little about what lay ahead. Watching them walk along the tree line, it made her a little curious that, out of the group, at least one was always looking back. They seemed to become nervous at the sight of the group heading in their direction. Within seconds, they all were gone, running through the woods in all directions. Sierra looked back at Kate in disbelief, but she soon realized what had spooked them. The sight of the others in their uniforms posed a scary sight, especially a large man like Carlos, who wasn't far behind her. The weapons they were carrying played another part in keeping them from looking non-threatening. "Wait here!" Sierra shouted to the others as she goosed the large horse in the sides with her boots. Responding to her command, Big Boy leapt forward, reaching his top speed in seconds. Sierra could feel the air blowing across her face. It was something she had long missed. Leaning forward, she stood up slightly in the stirrups, bringing her just inches off the saddle seat as she bounced up and down, keeping rhythm with Big Boy's stride. They crossed the highway, avoiding the abandoned vehicles and vanishing into the woods. "What do you think I should name him?" Darian asked as he stroked the mane of the horse he was riding. Kate, Mac, and Carlos stared at him, puzzled by the question. Seeing their confused response, Darian threw up a hand in the direction Sierra had ridden. "What? You don't think she can handle herself? The girl is a little scary." With that, the three agreed, shaking their heads and laughing softly. On the fast horse, it didn't take long for Sierra to close the distance on those who had fled into the woods. Guiding the massive horse through the thick trees, she headed for the guy who had appeared to be leading the group. She shouted as she came close to him, "Stop running, you fool!" She slowed Big Boy. "Where do you think you're going to go?" she asked as the man tried to avoid her. "Get away, I'm not going. You can't take me." Sierra was confused by his response. Who the hell does he think I am? She wondered. "Take you where? We just wanted to talk," she told the man, who was apparently scared of someone. "Is that what you told the others?" he asked as he ducked behind another tree, looking for a direction to run in which she and the large beast couldn't follow. Keeping close to the man and at the same time placing herself between him and any possible path away from the rest of her group, Sierra's curiosity was piqued. She was beginning to feel frustrated and did her best to fight the urge to pull her pistol. "Listen, just stop for a minute and talk, and then I will leave. Okay?" She was offering him one last chance before giving in to the urge, and was a little disappointed to see him slow down. He kept a tree between him and the girl on the horse. "You will go away?" he confirmed. "Yes." "You're not with the others?" he asked with a hint of panic in his voice. "Who are you talking about?" Sierra really wanted to know and know now. "There are soldiers going around loading people up." "Where are they taking them?" The guy had relaxed a little as he started to believe that she wasn't here to take him away. However, he was a little puzzled by the fact that she didn't know about what had been happening, and it was evident in his question to Sierra. "Where have you been?" "They have been picking people up since before the electricity went out." "Let's just say I have been out of the loop, and you take it from the top." Growing impatient, she leaned over, resting on the saddle horn with both arms crossed, supporting most of her upper body weight. After a few seconds, which seemed like minutes to Sierra, the guy began talking. "The morning the power went out, they came as I was getting ready for work. At first, I thought it was just my ride, who for once had shown up early, but that was a mistake. I called out for him to come in as I went into my room for this jacket I'm still wearing. Walking back into the living room, I quickly realized it wasn't my ride, but armed soldiers with rifles pointed at me." He paused as he hung his head and shook it from side to side. The sight of them was so shocking that I didn't know what to do. I just stood there. Sierra had a feeling she knew exactly who it was as she listened. They started screaming at me to get down, so I did. Then they began yelling, "Where are the guns?" I tried to tell them I had sold them months ago, but they didn't believe me. The next thing I knew, 2 of them were on top of me, hitting me and tying me up. After that, they threw me in a bus with others and told us not to say a word. He stopped talking and stared at the ground. Even though the man's situation was much different than hers had been at the beginning, the emotions were the same. The feelings of helplessness and frustration of having one's life defiled by others. Sierra thought how she could have easily let herself become as broken as this guy had it not been for growing up with a brother like Robert. Looking at the condition the man was in now, she was that much more grateful. "Where were they taking you?" she asked, wanting to move the story along. She looked around the forest as a faint sound caught her attention. She dismissed it. "Not sure. We never made it, but I heard talk of a camp." A chill ran through his body as he spoke. "Didn't make it. Why?" He thought about what happened with a confused look on his face. "I didn't see much of it, but we had stopped at some kind of a checkpoint, and as they were loading others, a firefight broke out. When it was all over, this blonde woman came onto the bus and started cutting everyone free and told us to run. As I ran from the bus, I saw two men standing in the back of a big black truck holding rifles. There was another large man with them. He was wearing military clothes with tattoos covering his arms. I didn't stick around. I was just happy to be off that bus. The big guy started picking up the dead soldiers' weapons." Sierra thought she knew just who he was talking about, but said nothing. She sat on her horse, looking down at the guy, wondering where he was heading. Even that thought didn't last long before another crossed her mind. Before she could ask another question, the sound she had heard earlier reappeared. This time she could tell it was coming from where she had left Kate and the others. She figured she had all the useful information she could get from him and said one last thing before riding back. "If you know where the Jefferson City Armory is, go there. You will be safe." Then he watched as she rode off into the thick forest. When the edge of the clearing came into sight, she had a feeling she would be better off on foot. After securing Big Boy to a tree where he could eat some brush as he waited, she slowly walked over to the area she had entered. Before she could view what was going on, she heard voices. "Drop your weapons." "No, drop yours." "We have orders to take everyone in unarmed. It is for your own safety," screamed another. "I was pretty safe until you started pointing your damn rifles at me." Sierra could tell the voice was Kate's.